Hi everyone, happy World Chocolate Day to everyone. Hello everyone, welcome to the live session on Home Bakers Association. We're doing a World Chocolate Day demonstration of how to make a chocolate tube made by products given by Jindal chocolate. So we're using 3 different types of ingredients by Jindal chocolate. We've got a 55% chocolate, we're using a 70% chocolate, and we're also using cocoa powder given by Jindal chocolate. And we've also got a really nice nut butter. So this one's a hazelnut paste. Alright, the recipe that we're making today is a chocolate tube. This chocolate tube has 3 different components. One is a sponge. The other one is a chocolate mousse, and we also have a chocolate glaze. Right, so the recipe will be shared with you all soon when we post this. However, today we are only demonstrating everything for you. So I'll just run through the recipes really quick before we start making it. So this one is for the chocolate sponge that we're making. So for the chocolate sponge, we have cocoa powder, there's water, sugar, salt, baking soda, flour, cider vinegar, oil, and vanilla. Now this is an egg-free sponge. It's really soft, really moist. You can use this for any application. You can use it as a cake, you can use it as a sponge or a tea cake. We're using it as a base for our chocolate tube. Okay, so very straightforward recipe. You have to mix all of the dry ingredients along with the wet ingredients. So first, in a bowl, we'll mix all of the dry ingredients. So that is the sugar. Then we'll add in the flour. The baking soda, salt, and the cocoa powder.
Can we use this sponge as tea time cake?
Yes, you can use the sponge as a tea cake also. You follow the same method, and instead of baking it on a tray or something, you can bake it in a loaf tin.
Can make for cupcakes too?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a very versatile recipe. You can use it for anything, and the ingredients are easily available. So just mix all of the dry ingredients together. Ensure that you mix it properly, because sometimes when we're mixing all these dry ingredients, the cocoa powder is not sieved or the flour is not sieved. So ensure that you mix it all properly.
What will be the best proportion for oil plus butter instead of using only oil?
You can use oil and butter substituted the same amount. I like to use oil because it keeps the product really moist, really soft, and even if you refrigerate it, it's not firm, it's not hard. Oil also I've used regular sunflower oil, but if you want, you can use soybean oil, you can use coconut oil, you can use any other oil that you have. Even olive oil is fine, but not extra virgin. You'll have to use just the regular olive oil. Alright, so you have all the dry ingredients mixed. This is how it looks. It's like an even mixture. And now to this we will add our wet ingredients. So first we've added the water, oil, vanilla paste. The vanilla paste is only to add some flavor. You can also use essence if you want. And the vinegar. Okay, I've used cider vinegar because it's got a very nice flavor.
Is the water warm?
The water is at room temp, not cold, room temperature. Okay, just give this a really nice mix. Ensure that it's a really smooth batter. You see, it starts to get glossy, really shiny. That's how the batter has to be, okay? Okay, like a really nice cake batter. Now this, like you asked, you all can make cupcakes, you all can make muffins, you all can use it as a tea cake batter, you all can use it as sponge for layering cakes. It's very versatile, and well, if you it depends on the way you bake it. If you need to soak it, if you don't need to soak it with a little bit of sugar syrup, but the sponge is really good.
Can we use an electric beater to beat it once?
You can, if you have a lot of lumps. Yes, you can use an electric beater, but if you can just mix it with your hand, that does the trick. Alright, so now we'll pour this batter on a mat. Okay. And we'll ensure that it's smooth throughout, so we'll get an even sponge. Now remember, I'm using this as the base for my chocolate tube. So if I want to make a cake out of this, then I'll have to put it in a ring. If I want to make cupcakes, then I'll have to put liners up below it. But since I want a flat sponge, I'm spreading it out.
What is the size of the mat?
This one is 40 by 30 centimeter.
Do we need to grease the tray with oil?
If you're baking it, so this one's a mat, you don't have to grease this at all. But if you're baking it in a ring or anything, then it's not required at all, because there's so much of oil already in the recipe. So it's not necessary to be part of the greasing process.
Which chocolate are you using?
I am using Jindal's cocoa powder.
Can we use this recipe for Swiss roll?
Preferably not. So for a Swiss roll, you require something which is really flexible. This recipe is not flexible. It's good to have it as a cake, but it's not flexible for you to roll it into a Swiss roll. So when you try to roll this recipe, it might just break or crack, and you're not going to get a smooth Swiss roll. So not for a Swiss roll.
How many grams batter does this recipe yield?
We'll share the recipe with you all. You can scale it down to whatever. This one is roughly about 700 grams in total. Alright, so this is how our sponge looks. If you see, clean, smooth, and we'll bake this at 170 degrees for about 8 to 10 minutes. Alright, now I'm baking it for 8 to 10 minutes. The time is less because it's a thin sheet. If I'm making it in a tin or a ring, then I'll have to bake it for a little longer, probably about 25 to 30 minutes. Okay? Okay, any questions about the sponge till now? If you all have any questions, you all can ask them. We can, I'll talk to you about the sponge then. Before we move on to the next recipe that we're going to make, that is a chocolate mousse.
Temperature?
Temperature is 170 degrees for 8 minutes.
Mat details?
The mat is from a company called Silicomat. It's a 30 by 40 centimeter mat. It's called a flexi pan.
Baking for how much time?
8 minutes. Baking is for 8 minutes.
Did we use milk?
No milk at all. No milk in the recipe. But however, you can use milk if you don't want to use water. You can use milk. It's just going to be a little richer, and it's not going to contribute to a lot. So water does the trick for whatever you need from the recipe. If you want a nice sponge, if you want a flavorful sponge, water in the recipe can do the trick for you. You don't require milk at all.
Did we add baking powder?
Baking soda we've added. Baking soda also only because you have apple cider vinegar to react with it. That's why baking soda.
Can we use this recipe to make madeleines?
Can try it. For madeleines, yes, you can try. It's not going to be like a madeleine. A madeleine is supposed to be slightly airy and at the same time a little firm. It's not going to be as airy, but does the job.
Can you recap the sponge ingredients?
So, in the dry ingredients, we had sugar, flour, baking soda, cocoa powder, and a little bit of salt. Okay, in the wet ingredients, we had water, oil, vanilla, and apple cider vinegar. We mixed all of this together and just spread it on our mat. Alright, we'll share the recipe with you all soon. When we are done with this live, we'll post it on the page.
Can we store the sponge?
No, the sponge, if you after baking, yes, you can. After baking, you can keep it for about 4 to 5 days. Nothing's going to happen to it. But you can't make the batter and keep. You have to bake it immediately. Okay? Alright. The next thing that we're making is the chocolate mousse. Now for the chocolate mousse, we're using this mold. This is also from Silicomat. It's an eclair mold. So this is why we're calling our recipe the tube, because it's in the shape of a tube. Okay? Now this recipe also, we have a cutter for this, so the cutter goes exactly into the mold. So this is what we'll be using to cut the sponge. Alright? So this is our apparatus that we need. For now, we'll just talk about the sponge, the mousse that we're making. So for the mousse, we are using Jindal chocolate. This is the 55% chocolate. This is couverture chocolate, okay, no compound. So we're using a 55% chocolate, not very bitter, but not very sweet also. We've got some cream over here that we need to whip. So these are both whipping creams. One part is going to be put in the chocolate and be made into a ganache, and the other part is going to be whipped and mixed with this ganache, so we'll get a mousse. Mousse-like texture. Okay?
From where they can buy the mold and the cutter?
The mold and the cutter, I will share the details with you all soon. But about the mousse, you have to just ensure that everything is in equal proportion. So you have one part of cream, another one part of cream, and one part of chocolate. Okay? Alright, details about the equipment I'll share with you all soon. Alright, so we just need to heat up either the chocolate or the cream. So I'll just melt the chocolate in the microwave.
Is it a dairy whipping cream?
Yes, this is 100% dairy whipping cream. However, if you want to make it non-dairy, you can. Just same amount of everything. Okay, so Same amount of everything. Instead of dairy, you can go for non-dairy, no problem. But this is whipping cream. Okay, so you cannot use the 24% cream. You have to use either 35 or 40% cream.
Brand of whipping cream?
The one that we're using is Anchor, but there are various other brands. Ellenware, there is Fletcher, Payson Breton, so any of these brands is fine.
Can we melt chocolate on double boiler?
You can absolutely melt the chocolate on a double boiler. You can in fact mix the chocolate and the cream and melt both of them together also later. It's just I like to melt the chocolate first and then add the cream, because you have different fats. In chocolate you have cocoa butter, and in the cream you have butter fat, which is from dairy. So just to ensure both of them mix together, I heat up either one, so then the emulsion is better. Alright?
Is it a tropical whipping cream?
No, it's not. It's not imitation whipping cream, it is dairy whipping cream. Alright, so I'm going to use the cream. We're going to whip this.
Can we use Tropolite cream?
You can, no problem, using Tropolite. You can use Tropolite cream, yes.
How to stable whipped cream?
Sorry?
How to stable whipped cream?
Whipped cream, you just ensure you whip it properly. If it's dairy whipping cream, then you just ensure that you whip it 90%. But dairy cream has a better flavor. It's got a very buttery flavor, which gives a lot of body to the mousse.
Is the cream room temperature or cold?
The cream is cold, not at room temperature. Room temperature cream takes a while to whip up. So it's always better to use cold cream for whipping.
In sponge, instead of apple cider vinegar, what can be the substitute?
You can use acetic acid also. You can use any other vinegar, whatever you want. I just like using apple cider vinegar because it's got a very sweet flavor and it's not very acidic. So when you mix it with something, it doesn't give you a very harsh aftertaste. It's very mellow. So apple cider vinegar is really good.
How long does it take for the chocolate to melt?
I melt it in 30 seconds interval in a microwave. So 30 seconds, remove it, mix it, and then 30 seconds again. So that's being done at the side. But if you're doing it on double boiler, then that's also fine. Don't melt the chocolate for more than 30 seconds in a microwave. It will start to burn.
What will be the proportion for the chocolate ganache, and how can we change it from frosting to dripping consistency?
You can increase the amount of cream based on how thick or thin you want it. Now I've done a 1:1 ganache, which is 1 part of chocolate, 1 part of cream, and then I'm adding 1 part of cream whipped into it for it to become like a mousse. But otherwise you can follow anything.
The speed of the beating the cream?
I generally whip up between 4 and 6. Between 4 and 6 in a KitchenAid gives you even whipping. So it's not necessary that it has to be super fast also.
Why is there 2 measures of same whipping cream?
One is whipped and one is unwhipped. One part is whipped and the other one is just mixed with the chocolate so that it is smooth. Okay, so we have the chocolate over here. And we're adding some cream to this. So one part of the cream is here added into the chocolate, and one part of the cream is whipped. So we'll mix this together till it becomes a nice and smooth emulsion. You can also blend this, but since it's such a small quantity, I'll just mix it with my hand. If it's a large quantity that you're making, preferably I'd suggest you blend this.
Can we make this mousse with compound?
Yeah, yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Don't we need to keep this cream and chocolate mix into the fridge like we generally keep them?
No, not at all. So when you're making it, you don't have to. But after it's made, yes, you will have to keep it in the refrigerator.
You would like to see the cream which you just did.
You see? That's the texture, that's the consistency. Okay, it's a proper whipped cream. So I'm going to add this.
Can we use this mousse on cheesecake?
Yes, you can. Why not? Very specific. Use it on a cheesecake. But yeah, you can use it for anything though.
Does the whipped cream has soft peaks?
Soft, yes, soft peaks. Whenever I whip cream, I whip it only soft peak stage. So you see the mousse slightly runnier, but that's how it should be. Because if it's too firm, it gets difficult for you to put it in a mold. So you see, smooth.
When I try melting Jindal cocoa in microwave, they didn't melt easily. Why?
Yeah, it takes a little long. The couverture, it's Indian couverture. So it's made in India. So the couverture is slightly thicker as compared to other chocolates. But in terms of flavor, it's really good.
Why aren't you doing cut and fold method?
If I wait to do cut and fold, which you can do, it's really not important in a mousse like this. I would rather do cut and fold for a sponge where I need that aeration. Here it's already aerated and I don't want a very aerated mousse. I want a slightly overdone mousse because at the same time while I'm eating it, it shouldn't be too airy. This is the only thing that I have which is going to give it some body. So I'm okay if I just mix it all together. Okay? Alright. Okay, just pouring all of the mousse into the piping bag.
Can we make in white chocolate in same proportion?
Absolutely, same proportion. You can make it with white chocolate also. I'll start piping. I pipe only 80%, okay? Once you're done, just tap the mold. Okay? When you tap, you are ensuring that all of the air gaps come out. So you have a nice smooth mousse.
How to store the Jindal chocolate in summer? Because it melts outside as my kitchen temperature goes up to 39 to 40 degrees.
I don't know how you survive in 39 and 40 degrees. But keep the chocolate in the refrigerator. That's the only alternative. I know it's not okay to keep it in the refrigerator, and that's what we practice also. But in a time like that, there's no other solution. It's not only Jindal chocolate, it's any chocolate which is a couverture will start to melt at that temperature. So just try to keep it in the refrigerator for a while and remove it whenever you need it. When you remove it, heat it up immediately. Do not allow it to come to room temp and then you heat it. Otherwise, there's going to be condensation and that is going to spoil your chocolate.
Can we use compound chocolate instead of calyx?
Yes, you can.
Can we make it in other mold?
I would not like it, but you can. It's absolutely fine to substitute compound for couverture in this recipe.
Can we make it in other mold?
Oh yes, you can't call it a tube then. I called it a tube because I'm making in a tube mold, but you can call it a chocolate mousse or anything else. Okay, what I'm doing is I'm just checking if the mousse is spread properly. So I'm just ensuring with an offset knife that it goes to every corner. Sometimes when we're piping, we don't realize whether we've piped it till the end. So just to ensure that the chocolate mousse has gone to every corner and we get a nice shape.
Does this mousse set to piping consistency?
If you keep it in the refrigerator for a while, yes it will. Or you can also whip up your cream a little more than I did. So since I'm putting it in a mold, I've whipped it up a little less. I've under whipped my cream. If you want it to be to pipe it into a certain shape, or you want it to be like a frosting for a cake or something, then you can whip up your cream a little more and just refrigerate this for a while. It will get back to consistency, not a problem. Okay, all right, so this is done. We'll just wait for our sponge. Our sponge is baking. I'll keep this aside. In the meantime, I'll also tell you about the glaze that we're making. Now the glaze is based on oil and chocolate. So we have two ingredients, oil and chocolate, which we're mixing. But in this, I'm using a small amount of almonds. So the almonds ensure that you get like this Ferrero Rocher kind of a crunch. So this is also called a Rocher glaze. Right? Okay. We'll just, the sponge is out here. using a cling wrap to put at the bottom. So if you see, that's how the sponge looks after baking. Okay, really nice and smooth. It's got a good texture also. So if you see, and I'll just break a small piece of it. It's got a really nice texture. Okay. I have the liberty to break it because I don't require this much. I just made it for you to see. However, I'll use small pieces of this just to put in the recipe. So you see a small layer of sponge goes inside as the base. Okay, you can use a cutter like this, or you can also just cut it.
Thickness of the sponge?
Thickness would be about 6 mm, half a centimeter. Just ensure that it's flat. Okay, it should not be coming out of the mold. Okay, so we're done with this. Now this will go in the freezer if you want to demold it well. If you're serving it in a glass or any other container, then it's fine. Then you don't have to freeze it, you can just chill it. But since we have to demold it, it's better that we freeze it. Okay? This goes in the freezer. It takes about an hour or 2 hours for it to hold its shape properly for you to demold well. So I've already pre-made some of them, and I will be using that to garnish. Okay, so this goes in the freezer right now. Alright, the next recipe that we are going to be making is the chocolate glaze. Now for the chocolate glaze, these are the ingredients that you need. So you've got oil. Again, I'm using regular sunflower oil, but you can use any oil that you have. You can use rapeseed oil, canola oil, rice bran oil, anything. Alright, this is Jindal's 70% chocolate. Okay, so it's a little bitter as compared to the 55 that we've used, but it's got a good flavor. So you can interchange based on whether you want it to be bitter, then you can use the mousse. For the mousse you can use 70%, and for the glaze you can use the sweeter one. But generally people like a sweeter mousse. So we've used a 55% inside and a 70% on the outside. Right, and I also have some chopped almonds which are roasted. That is going to give a nice crunch to my recipe.
For how much time shall we freeze?
It takes roughly about 1 to 2 hours. So you have to check how good your freezer is, how full or empty it is. The emptier your freezer, the better for it to demold.
So once we demold the product, won't it start losing its shape after some time in room temperature?
Not at all, not at all. But it will lose its shape if you don't glaze it. So you have to glaze it for it to hold its shape properly. So the glaze doesn't allow the condensation or anything to get into the mousse. Alright, and you have a chocolate also inside. It doesn't allow it to lose the shape, but yes, it becomes soft.
Can we use butter instead of oil for glaze?
You can use butter instead of oil. It's just that when you're glazing, it becomes really hard. And if your product is, it comes back to room temp, also it becomes a little hard. So it gets difficult for you to crack it open. When you use oil makes it soft. So you get everything in one bite. Otherwise it tastes like having, you get a choco bar or any other chocolate magnum bars, which are harder on the outside and the ice cream inside is soft. That is how this product will be. So you want all of it to come together in one bite. Okay? Alright, so we're just getting our product removed from the mold. I'll show you how it looks after it has come out of the mold. Okay?
What is the proportion for glaze?
For the glaze, I'll share the recipe with you. Generally, you take about 700 grams of chocolate and 200 grams of oil. And the remaining, so 70%, 20% and 10% of nuts. Okay, based on how you want it. Okay, it's very simple. Okay, so we're using a glazing rack. So this is a setup for glaze. You have a container, a pan, and we're going to be putting a wire rack on top of that so that the pastry is kept. So this is our pastry. It looks like this because it is immediately out of the freezer. So if you see, this is all the frost. Okay, so I'll keep this aside. Sorry. Keep this aside and we'll start melting our chocolate and the oil together.
Can we store left glaze?
Yes, you can. You can store it. Don't keep it in the refrigerator. Just keep it outside and reheat it whenever you need to use it. Okay?
This glaze can be used on tea cakes also?
Yes, you can use it on tea cakes as well. In fact, you can also dip your cookies in this glaze, but the cookies have to be cold. So you dip a cookie in the glaze and allow it to solidify. Really good. Okay? Okay, so now to make the glaze, one thing that you need to keep in mind is you need to blend all of this together because you have different oils. So you have fat that is there in the chocolate, that is your cocoa butter, and you have this fat from the oil, which is not cocoa butter. So in order to make sure that you have a good glaze, the emulsion is really important. So we need to blend it however you want to do it. Okay? By just mixing, it's not going to work.
Shelf life of glaze?
The shelf life of the glaze is 3 months, 4 months. Nothing's going to happen to it because there's nothing perishable in it. Okay? Alright, we just wait for the chocolate to be melted. I use almonds which are roasted. You can use anything possible. You can use hazelnut if you want, or you can use any other dry fruit that you want. No problem at all. But almonds, since they are a very versatile nut, roasted almonds taste really good. Hazelnut slightly superior in its taste, and for a hazelnut probably you could use milk chocolate rather than dark chocolate. Alright, any other questions guys? Please go ahead, ask. I'll be more than happy to answer.
Will the glaze melt at room temperature?
Yes, it will solidify because the product is frozen. But when it comes back to room temperature, it won't melt and leave the product, it will stay on it. Okay?
Can we use cocoa butter instead of oil for glaze?
You can. You can use cocoa butter instead of oil. It's the same thing. The only problem that you face is when the product is set from a refrigerator, it will be very hard for you to break it. So you will have to wait for a really long time for it to become soft.
Can we dip these tubes instead of coating on rack?
Oh yes, absolutely. But when you're placing it, because it's a tube and because you've dipped it, it's going to cover the whole thing. It's going to be round, so you won't be able to place it on the surface. Right now you have like a flat surface at the bottom, so if you just glaze it, you'll still have a flat surface.
Can we use desiccated coconut in glaze?
Why not? Sky's the limit, guys. You can use whatever you want. I'm using the nuts because it's a Rocher glaze, like a Ferrero Rocher. So you want the nuts to be part of it, but yes, you can use any other thing that you want. You can also caramelize the nuts and add it. That's going to give you a much better flavor. But this one is simple. This one's just very versatile.
How to transport the final product?
When you say transport, how long or how far is it going to go? That is what is important. So if it's going to travel for a really long time, then a frozen product is fine. Okay, we're starting the glaze now.
Was the cake baked with both rods on?
Yes. So I baked it in a combi oven. We don't have that feature of both rods, but yes, if you're baking it at home in OTG or a convection, you will have to switch both the rods on. Yes.
Can we use this glaze on cookies?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely can.
For the cream which is not whipped in mousse, does it need to be heated?
Not necessary. If you are heating up the chocolate, it's okay if you don't heat up that cream. So I have not heated the cream because I want the mousse to be at room temperature, because I'll be adding the whipped cream to it. If I heat up the cream also, I'm going to have a slightly warmer ganache, which in turn is going to give me a more, I'll have to keep it for a little longer for me to mix the whipped cream.
Can we use without nuts?
Yeah, absolutely.
How much maida do we need to add if we skip cocoa powder if we wish to make vanilla sponge?
The same amount. How much ever cocoa powder is there, you don't add it, and you add flour instead of that is fine. If you want, you can use an alternate flour also, that also works.
Shelf life for the completed chocolate tube.
I'd say 1 day, because I would finish it if it was in my refrigerator. But if you want to keep it for a little longer, you can keep it for about 4 to 5 days.
In dairy whipped cream, do we need to add sugar?
The dairy whipped cream, yes, you have to. There is no sugar at all in it. So whenever you're whipping it, for this recipe I haven't used sugar at all because the sugar comes from the chocolate, and I want that slightly bitterness from the chocolate itself.
Are the notes toasted?
The nuts are toasted, yes.
How long will it take to set if glazed on a tea cake or cookie?
Less than a minute. But the product has to be chilled. Okay? Okay, so when we're glazing, you need to ensure that you glaze it properly and you remove all of the excess. Okay, so you use an offset knife to remove all of the excess chocolate. Okay, so you can see how it's solidifying. From a glossy texture, you're getting like a very matte finish. So that's how fast it is solidifying. Alright, easy, super easy. Now to lift the pastry, I'm going to use a knife, or you can use toothpicks if you want. And just place it on a tray. Take out all of the excess.
Did you use an immersion blender for the glaze?
No, I didn't use it. I didn't use it at this stage because it was a very small amount. But if you're using a big amount of glaze, then you'll have to blend it. You saw the amount. I had enough glaze only to glaze 3 products. The remaining I would have to scrape it all out and use it. So if you're using a bigger recipe, then it's always better to blend it.
Is it okay to use couverture chocolate for glazing without tempering it?
Yes, yes. For this case, in this case, it's absolutely fine to use couverture chocolate for glazing because the product is frozen. If the product is at room temperature, really difficult for you to glaze.
If we serve in glass, then can we coat it with the almond glaze?
Coat the glass or the product? You'll have to tell me what you want to glaze.
If we don't use nuts in glaze, shall we use the same 70/20 ratio of chocolate to oil?
Yes. Then you just skip the 10%. So it's 70%, 20% and 10%. If not, then you just skip the remaining.
Can the excess glaze be reused?
Absolutely. So you can scrape all of the excess glaze, reheat it and re-pour it. Absolutely fine. Okay? That's why the glaze is so easy to make and so versatile. You can use it for so many things. Also because of its usage. Alright. We've got some whipping cream here. I put it in a round nozzle. So what I'll be doing is just piping . Okay, made some chocolate garnishes which I'll be placing on top. Alright, I'm just using a sieve to dust some cocoa powder. And we'll just be putting some gold leaf for the pastry to look even better. Okay, so that is it. that is our chocolate tube. I hope you enjoyed this session. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to help you. Of course, my Instagram handle is tagged along with the video. So let me know if I can help you with anything. And a big shout out to home bakers for organizing this really nice session for everyone on the occasion of World Chocolate Day. Also shout out to Jindal Chocolate for ensuring that we've got all our chocolate necessities in place. Yes, I'll just cut one pastry for you to see. Okay, so that is how the tube looks. Alright, so you have a nice layer of the gourmet glaze along with the mousse and the sponge. Okay, this session will be uploaded soon. I hope you enjoyed the session. A very happy chocolate day to everyone. Take care. See you soon.